Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar entitled How Oracle is Using Qubole's Heterogeneous Cluster Management to Yield 90% Cost Savings. Today's speakers will be Justin Wainwright, Oracle Systems Analyst focused on the Qubole platform, and Godin Yao, Qubole Principal Product Manager, working on the Qubole product, obviously. Godin is going to start the conversation today, but I think he's going to take just a few minutes to talk a little bit about all the exciting things that have been happening between Oracle and Qubole lately. So with that, I'll pass the ball over to Godin.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Godin. I'm a product manager in Qubole. So if you've been paying attention to our website, you probably would know that there's a lot of things going on between Qubole and Oracle. So yesterday, we launched a QDS service, GA, on top of Oracle Bare Metal Cloud. So this is an exciting step. So Qubole now actually operates everything on all the clouds that we know of. There's another work that we've been working on with Oracle, which is to do a built-in database connector to Oracle Bare Metal Cloud database service. So we will provide the ability to import structured data from Oracle Cloud DB and also provide the ability to issue queries directly to Oracle Cloud DB from within QDS. So the last thing I want to mention is the cluster lifecycle management and autoscaling. So this has been a kind of key differentiator for Qubole against other competitors. And with QDS and Oracle Bare Metal Cloud Service, enterprises can now have the ability and agility to start experimenting very quickly with the autoscaling and the cluster lifecycle management. But today, our topic is about something else. So this is about the heterogeneous experiments that we started last year. And we were lucky to have Oracle as our first trial customer. And today, we're going to share their journey with this feature and how they work with Qubole to achieve the cost saving and the high availability with their cluster. So with that being said, I'm going to move to the agenda items. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Qubole in case you're not familiar with what we are doing and what kind of service that we're providing. Then I'll talk something about the Spot instance, which is I'm going to use the Amazon EC2 Spot instance market to give you some idea how the Spot instance market could be and why we wanted to introduce heterogeneous feature to our customers. The next thing we'll have Justin to talk about his journey with Qubole to enable the heterogeneous cluster feature for his customers across Oracle divisions. Then I'll show you a demo. So this demo is pretty simple. It's just the cluster configuration. I'll tell you how you can configure this feature with Qubole and what that means for each column and also the weight and how we actually use the configuration to autoscale with the heterogeneous cluster. The last part is the cost-saving comparison. So this is more from Qubole's perspective, how we see the heterogeneous could potentially save the cost for our customer. Then we'll go to the Q&A. And so like Joe just mentioned, you can type your questions through the chat, and we'll log these questions and answer them towards the end of the presentation. All right. So what is Qubole? So in case you're not familiar with what we are providing. So Qubole, in a short sentence, is a big data service as provided as in the cloud. So we actually designed our product for all the personas in the enterprise organization, and it covers from data scientists, data analysts, to data engineers and the data admin. So if you have a data org in your organization and they've been serving the internal business users as well as they need to set up either on-premise clusters or they need to manage the pipeline, etc. So these are all our potential users for our platform. So right now, Qubole is mainly designed and established on the AWS web service. So we also are working on the Microsoft Azure. We already have some prototype and trial customers. We also support a Google Cloud Platform. And yesterday we just GA with Oracle Bare Metal Cloud. So that makes us a really cloud native, cloud optimized, and cloud agnostic provider. So this year we are also focusing on cloud intelligence. So this means we would optimize our platform and build more intelligence for our customers. So to give them more flexibility while they have less knobs to tune, and everything would work just without any further configurations. And from the service perspective, we provide Spark, Hadoop, Hive, Pig, and Presto. All these engines popular in the open source community, or it's widely used by enterprise users. So these are all the engines that we provide. So we support all the typical workflow from ETL to ad hoc queries, from machine learning to like a streaming. So there's a lot of innovations in the platform, and I would encourage you to check our website and to contact us if you have any questions. That would give you a broader overview of what we're doing and how we can help you. Okay, so that's for the Qubole. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is, before I jump into the heterogeneous, I want to give you a quick overview about the spot instance market. And that actually drives us to think this feature, why the heterogeneous could potentially help our customers more. So here you can see this is the AWS EC2 spot instance and the spot market history for the price. Now this is C3 4x large, and the date was last year, November 21st. So the time period here is roughly 5 hours. You can see how fluctuating the price could be during 5 hours. It stays under $0.3 per hour the most time. Then from, I think it's 6:10, it started to jump and almost double or even triple, like you can see here, at some point in different AZ. So that's the C3 4x large. Now let's look at another instance type, which is in the next slide. So this is the C3 8x large. So it's supposed to be twice as much strong as the C3 4x large. And if you check this price within the same time period, you can see, yeah, it's above the $0.3 per hour a little bit, but it's not that high compared to the peak hour, the peak time from the previous one. So that gave us the opportunity to help our customers say, hey, maybe from that period of time when you hit the peak of your default instance type, instead of bidding continuously on your default instance, we could potentially help you with another instance which is cheaper, stronger, more powerful, and can help you to complete the job in a shorter time with a lower price. So that's kind of the motivation and inspiration that we had, which drove us into this feature. So the next slide, I'm going to show a quick screenshot, which I'll be showing in the demo later. So if you think about why we consider heterogeneous. So first, what is heterogeneous cluster? It's very simple. For a homogeneous cluster, you always use the same instance type in your cluster, right? For the heterogeneous, you could potentially use a different instance type within the same instance family. So in this case, on the screenshot, we can see this is C3 2x large. You can use another instance from C3 family, say 4x large or 8x large. Or you can use even cross instance family. I can use it R4, R3 or R4. So that is how flexible you can do in this heterogeneous cluster that we provide. And why do we want to enable this feature for our customers? So one thing I just mentioned is the cost. So other instance types could be cheaper at a specific time point compared to your default instance type. Now in that case, Qubole's platform can automatically leverage that price difference for you. So without your manual intervene, let's say I have to kick off something or some script, there's no need. You just need to configure that. So this is a potential cost saving, and also it could potentially give you more powerful instances, so you could complete your job in a shorter time. So another reason behind it is really the availability. So we probably can hear the story from Justin later, but basically, let's say if you have a job running on the Spot instance, at some point Amazon decided to, take them off from your machine pool, or because there's too many people bidding the Spot instance, your price just doesn't beat others, etc. So that could potentially cause your job failure. Now, if you configure the heterogeneous, which gives you alternatives to provision other instance types and continue with your job. So that's from high availability perspective. It will help you to achieve higher SLA and give you more stability to run a job. So, okay, I think I've talked enough about heterogeneous and what is that. So the next thing, I'm going to pass it to Justin, and he is going to tell you his journey from Oracle's perspective about a heterogeneous cluster. So, Justin?
Thank you, Godin. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Godin. Good morning, audience. Thank you to Qubole for the opportunity for us to share our story here. And we're looking forward to helping everybody know how we got here and know some of the challenges that we encountered and some of the lessons that we learned. And hopefully we can save you all a bunch of money along the way. Basically, just to give you some background, we've been on Qubole for about 2 to 3 years now. The last 4 to 6 months have probably been the most challenging but also exciting for us. We've basically gone away completely from a concrete data center. We're purely in the cloud at this point, and we've migrated from a number of other applications strictly to Qubole. So we have a very large footprint out there, and we're very dependent on it for our business. Basically, as you can see here, this is kind of our representation of how we are today. But again, just as recently as probably 4 months ago, this slide would have looked a lot different. Back in September, we had about 75 clusters. 23 of those were Spark. We only had about 11 Hadoop 2 at that point, no heterogeneous at all. And we had about 41 Hadoop 1 clusters. The overall goal then, starting last quarter, was to start investigating heterogeneous because we heard about the Spot Complete feature. And basically, we were looking for it to help us with a lot of the challenges that we were encountering just with AWS's market as a whole. So the push was aggressively to explore Hadoop 2 with a couple of select teams and specifically focus on the heterogeneous feature and see what challenges are going to come around from that and how we're going to embrace that as kind of our standard going forward. So let's move on to slide 9 and we can get more in depth. Basically, the challenges that we were running into was we were trying to run 100% Spot clusters because we wanted to get away from on-demand as much as possible. The problem was that we had some shortcomings and short-sightedness, I guess you could say, from the beginning. We basically thought that Hadoop is memory intensive in most cases, and so it kind of made logical sense to say, hey, our 3 instance types are what we should use across the board, right? That's somewhat true. It kind of depends on what you're using it for. So we just deployed all of our clusters as R3s, and in some cases, some teams got a little bit more greedy with R3s than others, started setting their cluster sizes to 100 nodes, 200 nodes, 300 nodes, eventually we priced ourselves out of our own market. We were bidding at like 300, 400% of on-demand costs for our 3.8 extra larges, and we just kept kicking ourselves in the foot and costing us more in terms of on-demand usage. So we started missing SLAs. We started running jobs multiple times over and over again. We'd have one job or one team spin up a cluster, and another cluster would start to run out of available nodes and couldn't auto-scale anymore. So we kind of ended up with this sort of tribal mentality in terms of people were coming in earlier in the morning to get their clusters up first and win the battle of, hey, I got all the power today. So we needed to find a way to distribute the power and wealth and succeed across the board. So we started looking into reserved instances. We bought a whole bunch of C38X and R38X and thought, hey, this might help us. It did to a certain extent. The problem was we didn't have fully utilized clusters. So as people would run their jobs and finish, they'd lose those nodes, and then they'd go to another team, and then whenever they come back from lunch and try to queue other things up, they wouldn't be able to run their clusters anymore. We ran into the same situation that the later you got in the day, the more contention you got. So again, we needed to find another solution. So that's why we ended up in slide 10, which is the next one. The first group that we decided to use as our guinea pig was the operations group. The reason why they were a good candidate was because they weren't high demand use, but they were regular use. Their cluster stayed up for about probably 12 hours a day. They had a steady flow of jobs, but they didn't really tax the system too much. And they had the jobs that were easiest to find to rewrite for Hadoop 2 as opposed to Hadoop 1. They had a moderate balance of CPU and RAM as well as storage needs. So they were originally using C38X. When they first started, they were running about 1/3 of all their nodes on demand. Spot usage is around 40%, and then they were using about 25% of the reserved instances. So when we first started exploring Hadoop 2, we moved them to an M32X cluster, both with master and slave nodes. And then their on-demand cost or on-demand usage went down to about 15%. Spot usage went up to 75%, and then they were using about 8 to 10% of reserves. That was good, but we still thought we could do better. So that's when we started looking at Heterogeneous. And we started turning on with M4 extra larges, 2 extra larges, and 4 extra larges. That's when we really started seeing the benefit. So the number here with the $1,300 a week in spot costs, that was originally with the M32X. When we went to the M4 Heterogeneous cluster, we got the on-demand cost down to about 8%. Spot usage went up to 88%, and we were only using about 4% reserved instances. We still had some M4s that we had bought when we first started looking at this, because again, we thought that reserved was going to be the price point that was going to save us the most. But as we kept using it over time, we kept seeing the spot prices dropping, and about halfway through this migration, as we got more and more jobs converted and rewritten to fully embrace Hadoop 2 and some of the other engines and processing power that you had within Hadoop 2, we started to get the numbers even lower. And as you can see, last month we're down, like 1/3 what we were originally paying for spot. So operations is very happy because, 1, they don't have to rerun their jobs as often. 2, they don't have the management team going after them complaining about how much money they're spending. And 3, they're getting their jobs done within acceptable limits. The main thing that we had to stress with them, though, was to start small. Originally, their jobs ran for probably 8 or 10 hours, and we got those average run times down to about 2 to 4. Today, they're even better. They're down to about 1 to 1.5 hours. So this was the group that helped us formulate a lot of our standards for a lot of our other groups. A bigger example is the next group, which is our modeling group. These guys are running pretty heavy usage around the clock. These guys started on C38X and pretty much blew through all the reserved instances that we had pretty quickly. So once we started seeing the benefits from the operations group, we started exploring options for them. And where operations, we started with M4 2X. We started with these guys with a base of M4 4X. They improved from mainly on-demand and reserved instances initially to about 15% on-demand rate and 83% spot when we first turned this on. That was the $4,000 a week number. After we fully got heterogeneous turned on with a combination of M4 extra large, 2 extra large, 4 extra large, and 10 extra large, we actually got them down to about 2.5% on-demand usage, and now they're using about 95% spot. So again, there's almost a halfway cut here from $4,000 down to $2,400 a week. The main difference with these guys is that they run larger average job sizes and they have multiple concurrent runs. So we explored using the 10 extra large instance types for them because at certain burstable times throughout the day, they could blow through a ton of extra large and 2 extra large instances. So if they burst up to the 10x, then that means that they use less nodes overall, plus they free up more extra large and 2 extra large for other groups that may need them for their clusters as well. And the recent change that we made with all of our ad hoc default clusters meant that we have a lot more heterogeneous clusters and therefore a lot more demand for extra large and 2 extra large. So we need to have more available for everybody across the board. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So again, this focuses on the main time period here where we explored heterogeneous and made our big steps here over the last 3 to 4 months. As you can see, the overall on-demand has gone down from 16% of our total bill to only 6% now. The spot cost reduction has gone down from $172,000 a month to $134,000 per month. And heterogeneous enabled, every Hadoop 2 cluster we have today is running heterogeneous. We're just starting to explore heterogeneous on Spark, but there's some tougher lessons to be learned there. Namely with Spark, you want to start even smaller. Basically, Spark uses executors, which is unique to the Spark engine. And if you don't size your executors properly, heterogeneous won't help you as much. It still will help you, but if you try to force a 100 gig executor into a 2 extra large instance type, you're not going to have much success. So there's a little bit more re-education that needs to go on there, and there's a little bit more reworking that needs to happen there. But we have a couple of teams that are willing to dedicate some time and some effort into rethinking that and have had some success. And so we're looking to grow a lot in that area in the next 3 to 4 months. Some of the other lessons that we've learned, primarily when going to Hadoop 2, you want to use the same master and slave base instance type. Again, kind of look at your average size job. Don't build for your largest job, but build for your average size. And go with, if you can, 2x, maybe 4x if you have to, and then give you a little bit of wiggle room both on the low end and on the high end if you need to burst or spin down. Embrace ad hoc clusters. Don't be afraid to put a small cluster out there and point many people to it and let them do the majority of their work there. You can always spin off larger heterogeneous clusters for dedicated groups that have more specific requirements, and you should build around those requirements. Whenever possible, use minimal overrides in your clusters. Override at the job level. Don't set like 4 or 6 gigs of memory for every task at the cluster because heterogeneous is going to use the smallest chunk size that you have, and then you can always auto scale up and use more nodes if you need to. The most important thing whenever you're using heterogeneous stuff is know your audience. Know which jobs are CPU bound, which ones are RAM bound, which ones are disk bound. Know your job sizes, know your number of concurrent jobs, and most importantly, talk to your users and get feedback. You need to know which configurations work, and you need to not be afraid to do some trial and error and redo things a couple of times. It's not an exact science, and you're going to find some people running jobs maybe outside the ordinary that maybe blow your heterogeneous numbers out of the water. And then you need to kind of rethink, well, maybe those should be run on a different cluster even more so. Another limit is know your back-end architecture. If you're using AWS, know all of your AWS limits, especially in regards to instance limits. If you do fall over to on-demand, Make sure you're not going to blow through all of your on-demand instances in a particular region. If you're using M4 instance types like we are, make sure that you have all your EBS limits in check. You know that how many volumes you can attach overall in your environment, and the number of volume and amount of volume sizes that you're using. If you blow through all of your terabytes of EBS, then you're not going to be able to attach any more volumes to more new nodes, and therefore you're going to affect your auto-scaling opportunities. Make sure that your subnet allocations are large enough to hold more instances in a heterogeneous config than you were running before, especially if you're using small instance types like large and extra large. You could be running 10 times more nodes than you were in the past. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing if you didn't have enough allocation there to be able to spin up that many nodes. Know the market. Check your availability zones regularly. Make sure that you don't throw everything into US East 1A, for example, and then have no instance types left to bid on. You're not the only one that's bidding on the market, but again, you could do like us and you can price yourself out of the market just by 1 team to the next. Consider whether special events are going on. When reInvent is going on, for example, AWS uses their own instance types about 10 times the normal on-demand prices. So you have to kind of factor that into the equation. Another option that you can use with heterogeneous that maybe was a little bit too risky for normal usage is stable spot. We didn't cover this earlier with the architecture, but stable spot lets you bid spot prices on your minimum nodes, which are normally launched on demand. And if you're using heterogeneous, it lets you split your risk across multiple instance types, so the odds of you losing spot nodes are a lot less in this configuration. So stable spot becomes a more affordable and safer option. Again, if you're using Spark, make sure to go with small executor sizes. Build your jobs around a 2 extra large instance type, for example, and then allow yourself to spin up 50 to 100 executors if you need to. And again, don't be afraid to do trial and error with your groups and keep that feedback loop open as much as you can. Consider TES, consider Hive on Spark, and above all, avoid any costly operations if you can. Try to mitigate the risk of using costly operations like group buys and operations that funnel you down to one task. Heterogeneous isn't going to help you whenever everything is going down to one reducer. So you need to kind of scale things as much as you can and distribute the load as much as you can. I know that was a lot of information to take in, but those are all the lessons that we've learned over the last 4 months. So let's go to our default configuration here. So these are kind of the numbers and configurations that we settled into. Again, a lot of trial and error went into this, and a lot of inflated bills might have gone into this, but this is the happy medium that we settled in on. This may or may not work for all of you, but this seemed to be a good spot for us. So again, the minimum nodes, we'd like to keep them low. That keeps on-demand costs low and still gives you enough safety net on the back end so that you're not exposing yourself to too much risk there. And then, again, we allow ourselves to spin up to larger instance types where we need to. So hopefully this kind of gives you a little bit of a framework and a little bit of an example to start off of and hit the ground running, and your results may vary.
All right, thanks, Justin. So hopefully that was helpful to everybody, and then you can think about how you may leverage heterogeneous in your production environment and potentially achieve the same or even better results as Justin's team had. So now I'm going to show a quick demo. So this is a screen sharing from my computer. Yeah, so I'm sharing my screen right now. So if you're not familiar with Qubole, so this is our Qubole online portal. api.qubole.com, and there's a drop down. You can go to the clusters. So you can see I have a bunch of clusters already created. Yeah, so the configuration I'm going to show you, I can choose like a Hadoop 2 cluster here. So, oh, by the way, right now, the Heterogeneous, we currently only support Hadoop 2 and the Spark, these two. So if I go to Hadoop 2, so you can see here, here is your master node type and the slave node type. So to enable heterogeneous configuration, we check this box. So you can see here we have a drop down. So the node type is the heterogeneous instance types you want to configure when there's auto scaling event happens. So the auto scaling is meant for the slave nodes. So here. So let's say if I choose from the same instance family, which is C3, it will give you an easier way to configure the weight. So let's say I'm choosing a C3 4x large here. It automatically calculated the weight as 2. So this is, I believe right now it's based on the memory. So because this one has the double size of memory as the default, so it gives you a weight of 2. Now if I change the default instance type here, let's say I put that as 8x large, the weight will become 0.5. So this weight is always relative to the default instance you put here, based on the memory size. Of course, you can choose other family instance types. So let's say if I choose another one, let's say C4. Yeah, let me choose another M4. It's better. So here you can see it automatically calculated weight with the decimal. Yeah, so this is also based on the memory here. So usually, so in these, when it's a cross instance family case, we would recommend our customers to put your weight here, because when it's cross instance family, the default calculation is always based on the memory. But it could be you want to have more cores, in that case it's CPU, or you know your job better. You know what the cluster is used for. You know your users better. So that's why it's better if you give us a weight here to tell us equivalently, if I want to provision one instance here, how many instances I need from the heterogeneous instance type. So you can add, I think, up to 10 instance types here. And this is a priority order. So when we actually kick in, say, hey, I'm going to do the heterogeneous provisioning for you, it's based on the order of the instance types listed. And we will leverage the Spot Fleet API from Amazon and to feed all the information there, and then we get the results back. So that's pretty much the configuration. It's easy to understand. If you only configure from the same instance family, then the weight is also pretty accurate. You don't even have to change that. But if you configure across instance family, then you probably want to change the weight. So right now you can see that there's a beta tag here. But very soon we're going to remove this beta tag and GA this feature for all of our Qubole users within a few weeks. So you can also learn the details from our online documentation, how you can configure this even through API, not just from UI. And I think there's also a blog we wrote around last year, November, talking about the heterogeneous cost saving and other benefits. So I also would recommend reading that blog, which will give you more details. Then you can combine all the information there with the webinar and see if that could be beneficial to your organization. So now I'm going to go back to, yes.
Could I chime in on this for a moment?
Sure.
Specifically in regards to weights, like what we found was it was better to use a small instance type for your base slave node type, because as you can see with the weights there, if they're decimals, that means it's going to do 2 or 4 or more of those for each one of you have for your slave node type. So again, you can run into the situation where we did, where we blew through many nodes within a given family and exhausted the spot a lot quicker. So we found if you went with a low master node type and a slave node type based around, again, your average size, then your weights below use less nodes than it would in the other direction. So in this case, you'd use you use 2, or instead of 2 4x in an 8x slave configuration, you're using half as many 4x's as you would 2x's.
Yeah, that's very good input, Justin. Okay, so next I'm going to go back.
Sorry,
go ahead.
One more thing. As you go up to the larger instance types, you have less available nodes across AWS's infrastructure. So there are more extra large and 2 extra larges available than there are 4x's and 8x's, for example. So you want to use more of the ones that are available.
Yep.
Sorry, I'll let you get on with your demo.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And I think the input from Justin was also very good. You want to check like what's the most available machine pool in general from the history perspective, and see if that would give you the most benefits when you configure the heterogeneous clusters. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slides. So hopefully everyone can see my slides right now. So here is a cost-saving estimation from Qubole perspective. So before you saw the slides from Oracle's perspective, but that thing kind of put everything together from Spot instances, which includes heterogeneous configuration. So that's the overall cost saving they've seen from Oracle's perspective. Now, from Qubole perspective, we can single out the heterogeneous instances and see what exactly the cost saving just for the heterogeneous part. So I did some calculation based on our product metrics. I picked up this October, which is this slide, and the December, which is the next slide I'm going to show you guys. So October is the time Oracle just started trying this heterogeneous. So you can see the number of heterogeneous cluster configured was 8. The nodes we provisioned for them was about 13K during the 1 month period. So the number of heterogeneous cluster provision occurrences, what does that mean? So this means whenever there's a auto-scaling event occurs, so that, and also that auto-scaling involves heterogeneous instances. So I would count that as one occurrence. So that you can see over just 22 days, there's almost 300 occurrences to leverage heterogeneous configuration, help the clusters to auto-scale. The cost saving here is based on the US East 1 region. What I did was I calculate all the heterogeneous spot instances price from each availability zone, like the most commonly used BCD. And I did another reverse calculation and say, hey, if I were to use the default instance spot, what would be the cost for each zone with the number and also the instance type. So here's the math. I can see from these BCD each zone, we save like from 53% to 66 to 59. So this is, remember, it's a comparison just to the spot. So this means the heterogeneous spot instances actually save this much against the default instance spot. We have another data in the raw data sheet which shows to compare to the on-demand price, it's almost about 90% cost saving. So the next one is really the December data. So that's the same KPI, and so you can see from December, like what Justin mentioned, they started using Heterogeneous more across his team. So they're almost like a triple nodes compared to October. Got provisioned, and the occurrences are definitely more. So here we see a little bit lower cost saving against the default instance, but again, if you compare that to the on-demand, it's still around 90%. So that's the data we have from Qubole perspective. The next one is I did another quick look just to see what's the percentage when we convert the default instance type to the heterogeneous type with the user configuration. So you can see here for 2x, it goes to like x large to large, roughly to 2 to 1 ratio. For 4x large, you can see we do have some like a high burst usage case. In this case, it was provisioned with the 10x large. It's a very small percentage, but it actually represents the high burst use pattern from Justin's team. So remember, this is still the December data. So by January this year, I think it's more widely used. So the data could be different. Yeah, so I think that's just give you an overview. Hey, what's the percentage when these default instances can be converted to heterogeneous type? So with that being said, I think that's pretty much the content we have for everybody. So we're going to move to the Q&A part. So we're open to the questions. So if you have any questions, please put that in the chat window. Then we'll see if we can answer them. Okay, so.
Not any questions, but are there any guidelines around assigning weights to different?
Oh, okay. Are there any guidelines around assigning weight to different instance types in a heterogeneous cluster? I think we briefly mentioned that. If it's within the same instance family, I think that's pretty much the automatically calculated based on memory, because we know the core in the memory is proportional in the same instance family. I think Justin also mentioned. Do you want to reiterate like how do you configure this weight for the audience? Justin?
Yes. Again, just kind of use small base instance types and then burst up to the larger ones if you need to, as opposed to blowing through 4 or 6.5 or 5.5, however the math works out, if you're using larger instance types for your base. Again, it kind of depends. If you're using Spark, obviously you need to use base types that match with your executor, your container sizes, but the base rule is try to start as small as possible and then burst up if you need to.
All right, cool. Any other questions?
With that, we just want to thank everybody for attending. We've got a couple more, sorry. What has been the most useful or popular use case that lends to heterogeneous clusters?
So I wouldn't say heterogeneous is specifically designed for a certain use cases. So any use case you have right now in production, it can potentially leverage heterogeneous. So just like what I mentioned, also Justin showed you the two different cluster types, which one is operations cluster in our code, the other one is modeling cluster. So these two actually have different use cases, but they both benefit from heterogeneous. So I would say when you think about the use case, And you should combine the benefits you can get from heterogeneous and see if you can design the whole configuration around the use case so you can get more from heterogeneous. But in general, heterogeneous can be used on the majority of the popular use cases at this moment.
Justin, do you want to chime in on that question?
Yeah, I would like to add to what Godin said. In our case, the two examples that seem to be the best fit for us was if you have clusters that stay out for long periods of time, then again, that saves you from spot node loss as you're running, especially if you're running queries multiple hours at a time. You don't want to lose nodes and cause yourself headaches in terms of having to rerun jobs and worry about your cluster failing on you. So anything that looks like it's going to run probably for half to maybe your full work day, that's a good cluster to enable heterogeneous on. And again, if you're using very popular instance types like the R3 family in particular, bid prices are all over the place for R3s over the course of a day. It can be really cheap first thing in the morning, and by the time you reach around noon, it can be 4 or 5 times the normal price. So if you're using those type of instances, definitely heterogeneous saves you a lot of headaches.
Okay. There are people that are asking specific questions about Oracle, and I think that that might go beyond the scope of this call, but we can give those questions to you, Justin, offline. Anybody else have questions? And I just want to forward to the, another question for you, Justin. How much time did you spend on the trial and error?
I'd say, it depended on the group. Operations was a little easier to get them to fit into the heterogeneous model. So we had about a month of back and forth there. Modeling was kind of a month before they actually fully got onto the platform. They had like a test cluster that they were toying around with for a while. And then probably another 2 to 4 weeks after they were live on it, we had to do a couple more tweaks based on their usage. So again, your results may vary, but it's a fairly easy configuration to get up and running. So don't worry about the learning curve. Don't worry about shock value when you first turn it on. Just turn it on and see what happens, and then go from there.
Cool. I see another question from the audience, does Qubole automatically go for the lowest? So lowest price spot instance for the job. So the quick answer is yes. So the lowest, there are two things about lowest. The first thing is we would automatically pick up the lowest spot price among the availability zones if you don't have a preference for where you wanted the cluster to be provisioned. Another thing I forgot to mention is when we autoscale, the new nodes will always be added into the same availability zone. For the let's say if your master and your minimum slave nodes already in availability zone B, then when we autoscale, we will add the new nodes, no matter it's heterogeneous or homogeneous clusters. They will be added into the same zone. So that's for one thing. However, if the cluster is not up, let's say you started a new job, the cluster was just being started, then we'll compare, say, hey, across the 3 zones, which one has the lowest price for the spot, and we can provision in that zone. If you didn't configure any preference, because we have a configuration in the cluster, say, hey, any zone you wanna. We want us to provision this cluster. So most of the customers, they leave us any, so which gives us the flexibility to provision the cheapest price. Now the second part is about, because you will have multiple instance types in the heterogeneous configuration. So Qubole will also automatically check which one is the potentially cheapest. So we will provision that one for you in this case. And also, it's based on the priority. We'll try the first one, then we'll try the second on the list. So.
Thanks for that. We also got another question. When is auto-scaling triggered, and how does it help?
So this is more like a generic question for Qubole platform. So auto-scaling is triggered automatically when we detected the job load is beyond what the cluster size can handle. So if you still remember the, go back to here. So this is the Oracle typical configuration example. So when you set up the cluster, you will tell us what's your minimum nodes and the maximum nodes. So auto-scaling is helping you to scale between the minimum and the max node. We have the max node because we want to have a kind of cap or limit for the cost. We don't want to kind of scale unlimitedly, then you cannot control like how large the cluster would be and in your cost. So this is when you configure your cluster with the minimum and maximum, then we do the auto-scaling when the job load is exceeding the current size. And based on that, you can put heterogeneous, or if you didn't configure heterogeneous, we just try to get the spot instance from the default type.
Terrific.
Okay.
So with that, I just want to take one moment as a marketer and just make an announcement about our upcoming Data Platforms 2017 conference. We'll be hosting and sponsoring this conference that happens May 24th through the 26th. It's Data Platforms 2017. It's the first industry conference focused exclusively on helping data teams build the modern data platform. We'll have luminaries coming to speak from eBay, Facebook, LinkedIn, and from Uber. And so we would love to have you all come and join us in May in Arizona. One of the follow-up emails that we'll send to you will include the link to Data Platforms 2017. We'll also send a link to Dash's weekly live demo and the blog that Godin referenced earlier today, just to make sure you have all that information. So we really appreciate everyone's time today. A lot of you hung in there with us through the whole question and answer. We really appreciate all of that, and we'll see you in May, I hope. So with that, here's information about how to get in touch with Qubole. You can chat with sales@qubole.com today, or you can always go to the website, fill out a contact us form, and obviously we'll be following up with you after this meeting. So thank you all so much. With that, we're going to give you your day back, and we appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Bye now.